Good afternoon. Claude Rossiger. And I thought that what we might do is look at, let's call it, where our community has been and where it might go in three parts. The first would be, what character do we desire for our community, if any? The second would be the role that architecture and landscaping should play. And the third is what really is the function of town planning. So I will break this into three segments, making them at least briefer. And we'll begin with the character that we might want our town to have, if any. Wolfeboro, 30 or 40 years ago, was a pleasant, pretty rural New Hampshire town. Now, it had always been something of a resort, a vacation town, really. But that was a different era. It was a time when people came on vacations for a week or 2 weeks, rented a cabin, rarely stayed in hotels. There weren't very many. And particularly came to, I would say, to enjoy the lake, to be on the lake shore. The town itself was a typical small town, had a couple of markets, had the all-important liquor store, had a few filling stations that doubled as garages for repairs, had some small shops that catered to needs that were later replaced by either big box stores or online ordering. So the ladies had a choice of a couple of dress shops where they could usually find something quite attractive, in fact. And the gentlemen could find anything from a pair of jeans in which to work outdoors to a suit. Yeah, even a suit. So in some way, 30 or 40 years ago, the village, I insist on the village of Wolfeboro, offered more variety than it does today. Wolfeboro also had at that time more restaurants. I'm not talking about these kind of, I don't know, counter diners. I'm talking about restaurants, real restaurants. Shocking, the ladies went in dresses and the men wore a tie. Now you'll think me terribly old-fashioned. I am in a way, but not entirely. I can adapt. The point I'm trying to make is that it was a completely different style of life. Because in some cases, the people of today are the children and grandchildren of the people of then. So the family line stayed, but the habits changed. Now, that's as will be. It's what happens in societies. The question is, do we still adhere to the idea which we had then of having a pretty and agreeable town? Or is the town simply a sort of agglomeration of services? So you have the essentials, no doubt. In the supermarkets, you may have a wider choice than you once had, although to some extent people now go further for most of their grocery shopping. It's more economical to do that. And of course, a great deal of other shopping is now done online. And there's probably nothing to be done for that, and there's no particular reason to be for or against it. Without a doubt, it's convenient. Without a doubt, it offers more choice. Different world. But the question really is, cannot all that exist in the context of an attractive, pleasant community? Is it necessary that we put, I would say, commercial metal buildings next to rather handsome older homes? Is it necessary that we put, I would say, supply or service stores? Let's point to auto parts, for example. Well, it's a question of where you put them, isn't it? If you put them on the main street next to a couple of older buildings, it's a sore thumb. There's no other way around it. By the way, I'm frequently in auto parts stores, so I don't have a thing against them. I'm for them. I just think that it's a matter of what we want. When we build new buildings, the question is, are we looking for any kind of character or agreeableness? Or we really don't care? I mean, why not just put a monstrous metal building for boat storage next to an old church? What the heck? There was the land, might as well. Or maybe not. Maybe not. So I think, without further ado, you probably can sense my point of view, but I'm not trying to impose that or argue for it. If the sense of the community is anything goes and whatever goes, what could I do about that? Nothing. It's what the community would want. The question is it what it would want or not? Or are we simply at a point where there's no guidance, no direction, no reasonable control? I don't like controls. I don't like regulations. I like a community that has a sense of itself and that guides itself in some way. That's not always possible. So certain things have to be seen to by zoning. That's reasonable. You can't put a construction contractor's yard in the middle of a residential area. It's not really fair to the people in the residential area. It diminishes the value of their homes, certainly. It diminishes the aesthetic appeal. The other thing is do we really want every available parcel of land built on? Now, I've already told you I don't like regulations very much. So maybe it's not a matter of preventing it or forbidding it. Maybe it's a matter of making it the easier thing to do. Certainly already 4 decades ago, we adopted current use taxation. So if you had a certain amount of land or more, you could put it into current use. Current use meant you could preserve it as fields or forest and be extremely lightly taxed on it because it was taxed at the value of field and forest. That had the advantage of providing an incentive to landowners to keep their land. And should a landowner subsequently wish to develop it, it can be done. But unless it's changed, I think you have to pay 10 years of back taxes at the rate of the new zone that you're entering. Seems very reasonable to me. One has had the advantage for a long time of very low taxes. The town has had the advantage of preserving the land, forest, fields. So it maintains its character, And it does so in a way that benefits the town and the landowner. I'm just throwing these things out as considerations, ideas. I think an enormous amount can be done without regulation, but it cannot be done if the community has no sense of itself. If the people who are the community no longer care in any profound way about what their town is, will be, and might be in the time of their grandchildren. That's, I think, the place to begin when we subsequently will talk about architecture and planning. Thank you.